The administration has been pushing several ideas to help prevent another meltdown in the future. Among these ideas is the Consumer Financial Protection Agency.
We're proposing a new and powerful agency charged with just one job: looking out for ordinary consumers.
The new agency would regulate credit cards, mortgages, other financial products used every day by American consumers. As the proposal heads to the Senate after passing the House, Republicans say they will try to block it. Quoting from the Huffington Post's Ryan Grimm, "From the Republican point of view, the idea of a separate agency is still anathema," said Senator Robert Bennett of Utah, a senior Republican on the Banking Committee. "An independent agency," he said, "can go too far in the direction of tight regulation without taking into account the effect of the rules it creates on business and the economy." He says he's seen it happen before. Quote, "Can you say EPA?" In other words, Senator Bennett is against the idea of a financial protection agency because it could turn out to be just like the Environmental Protection Agency. You know, with requiring testing by public water systems to make sure the water is safe to drink, and getting lead out of gasoline, and ending the practice of dumping sewage directly into the ocean. To be clear, the Republican case against a Consumer Financial Protection Agency is that it might be like the agency that stopped us dumping sewage directly in the ocean. That's their argument against it. Joining us now is Elizabeth Warren, a key advocate of the CFPA. She's also a Harvard Law professor and chair of the Congressional Oversight Panel for the TARP bailout funds. Professor Warren, such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
It's good to be here.
What do you make of this it'll be another EPA and we mean that in a bad way argument?
Well, you know, I think that really is the approach, and that's the notion that regulation automatically means bad. And I don't know what to say about it. You know, regulation works. Do we really want to go back to a world, not just with the EPA, but look at the rest of them, the Food and Drug Administration? I like to know that when I buy antibiotics, it's not rat poison and it's not baking soda. I like to know that when I buy a car, it really will come with brakes and with airbags. I like to know when I buy an infant child seat that on impact it won't collapse and crush the baby. Regulation helps us be safer. It works. Look, at the margins, can we argue about whether or not the EPA, Senator Bennett thinks it should have been a little weaker. I might think it should be a little bit stronger at the margins. But the notion is regulation fundamentally works, and that's the problem with consumer financial products. There is no basic regulation.
How have consumer financial products like mortgages, like credit cards, how have they ended up being totally unregulated?
Well, this is what's amazing. They've ended up being totally unregulated because there are 7 regulatory agencies, each of which owns a little tiny piece of the pie, and each of which, 4 of which, compete for business with each other. Now, how do you compete for business with each other? That is, if you'll come and be regulated by me, the OCC says, I'll offer the least regulation possible. No, no, says the OTS, I could offer less regulation. So what we really have are regulators who aren't there to regulate on behalf of the public. We have regulators that are there to offer good deals to the banks. That's why I think President Obama's right when he says we need one, just one regulator in Washington who watches out for American consumers.
The Republicans offered precisely 0 votes for this agency in the House, although it did pass with the Democratic majority. The senators are already lining up against it. Obviously, it looks like there's going to be some, maybe even unified Republican opposition. Every Democrat will need to be on board. Do you think there's a chance that it'll pass?
Well, I think there's a chance. Look, it's a David and Goliath story of huge proportions. And this is a Goliath who's not just big. This is a Goliath who is very well funded by the financial services industry and has a lot of friends, the kinds of friends that money buys. And so they wield a lot of influence. But look, this is the moment. This is the financial services industry that brought us to the brink of a depression. They wrote those rules. They're the ones who've been in control. When they brought us to this crisis, they're also the ones who turned to the American taxpayer and said, now bail me out. And now they are using some of those very same dollars to turn around and lobby Congress to say, let us continue to write the rules that brought us to the brink of disaster. So, you know, now ought to be the moment.
You first suggested an agency like this years ago. In terms of what the version of it now that's actually on the table, would it, if that version of it had been in place 5 years ago, could it have helped prevent the meltdown?
Absolutely. In fact, not not just could have, I really am going to be stronger on this, it would have prevented a huge part of this crisis. There still could have been some trouble and we could have had some bumps, but remember, this crisis started one household at a time. One lousy mortgage that got sold, one family at a time, and then bundled and rebundled and sliced and diced and put into the stream of commerce. And the importance of remembering that is this agency isn't just about protecting families, although I think that would be reason enough for it. It's ultimately about protecting the whole economy. When we destabilize American families, when we sell them terrible products that explode in their faces, that in turn destabilizes the entire economy. These products that were going to offer these huge, huge profits weren't just lousy deals for consumers. They were lousy deals for investors. They were lousy deals for pension funds. They were lousy deals for the entire worldwide economy. We could have headed this off.
Elizabeth Warren is a Harvard law professor, chair of the Congressional Oversight Panel for the TARP bailout funds, and somebody that I'm very, very grateful for in this whole discussion that we're having as a country. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay, coming up on Countdown, Keith looks at the impact of the impending retirements announced today on the Democratic Party, and we will be right back.
There is a constant battle escalating right on our borders. In a new series, Nat Geo puts a face to the war, shadowing the men and women.
Everybody here puts a piece of themselves